Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and I'll let a few people join this live stream. I'm planning on doing something a little bit different today, and for a few different reasons. So I'm going to be doing a live news show, and I'm going to take questions from the audience after I finish doing all these stories that I got prepared here. But also, I wanted to do all these reports in order to also take them afterwards and put them up as small tidbit reports, little updates, trying to figure out what to call it. But either way, it will cut down my time a lot. So obviously, I put a lot of quality and effort into most of my video reports, especially the ones I do with John Snyson, and I'm going to continue doing that just as much as I always do. But also, I want you to also have more stories coming at you from WAM. So I'm going to report on more stories as little tiny news headlines in a live stream and then put them up as like maybe 1 or 2 minute tidbits after I've finished the live stream as well. So I'm going to get to your questions after I go through some of these stories. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to share the video around, press like below, and we'll be off. So it might seem a little weird because I'm going to be introducing myself over and over again because, again, I am going to be taking these afterwards and reposting them as smaller video reports. So starting it off today, we're going to look at this story about Trudeau. So I'm just going to introduce myself again and we'll be off. Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are going to look at a quick story in the news right now, which is that Justin Trudeau's government approval numbers have plummeted to 37% after a difficult 2017. Now, there's no doubt that Justin Trudeau is very unpopular, as was Harper before it. I really don't understand why people don't realize that they are just falling for the same old tricks of government over and over again. I'm going to get to that in a moment, but looking at this article as it says, according to the latest Nanos IRPP survey, just 2 years into their mandate, only 37% of Canadians now approve of the Trudeau Liberals' performance in government, down from 43% in 2016. As an interesting point of comparison, that's the same approval rating former Prime Minister Stephen Harper received from the same research firm in 2017 in his 9th year as Prime Minister. So, okay, Trudeau's an idiot, all right? We all realize Trudeau's an idiot. He is the epitome of statism on full display. People fall for it because, well, he has nice hair. He talks like a cool dude. Look, the fact of the matter is Justin Trudeau is no different than any other prime minister because the whole idea is government coercion, government destruction of individual liberties, humanity, freedom itself. So I really think that people have to start learning, maybe from the fact that every single prime minister and every single president in the United States as well has a low approval rating because government intrinsically has a low approval rating. It's government that is unpopular. It's not necessarily these individuals. It's just that they always find really annoying people to go up on stage and put their hand in fist, their thumb in fist, and tell you what you need to obey. And, the whole majority enforcing its will on the minority scenarios. So this is really important to keep our eyes on because everyone just keeps going, well, maybe next election things are going to change. So we'll replace Trudeau perhaps with this new guy from the Conservative Party or this new guy from the NDP or from the Green Party. It doesn't matter. Politics are dead. Let's bury them and let's be done with them. Individual liberty, freedom is the basis of humanity itself, the self-responsibility of the individual. So that ends that story. All right, now looking into the next report here. Again, for those that are just joining us, I'm going through a whole bunch of reports and I'm cutting them out after as individual small tidbit reports. Some of you might not have heard it when I first announced it at the beginning of this video. So I will be taking questions after I'm done going through these headlines. We'll see how this goes. Again, Next News Network does this. They do live videos and they cut out little bits. Now, I want to put as much substance into it as possible. I'm not going to just go and read articles like some guys do in these kinds of videos. I want to actually get to the point of the matter, and that takes a bit of research, etc. And unfortunately, a lot of people in media, They just don't really care about the viewers, and I care about the viewers, and I want to put substance into it, which is why John and I are still going to be doing just as many in-depth reports as humanly possible. Anyway, moving on to the next. Again, I'm going to be introducing myself at the beginning of each story. So if it's a little awkward, yeah, it's awkward for me too. I'm still trying to figure out how to introduce myself in these little short 2-minute, 1-minute, 2-minute videos. So let's see. Okay. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we're here for another short tidbit update on the news. So let's look at this story here. Manny Pacquiao wants bloggers licensed, media controlled. So of course, a guy who, you know, he got his living, or he made his living off of getting punched in the head, is saying something stupid. Who would have thought? He's now a senator in the Philippines, a very, very statist, totalitarian country. Let's look at this article here. And it's no doubt that this is statism on full display, as he mentions. We know that in our Constitution there is freedom of expression, but because of this freedom of expression, nabu na kasi, it wasn't obviously translated very well. It goes on to say, do you think the media in the country, we should control it? I think that's the problem. Kasi sa technology natin, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what he's saying, but basically he's saying that we need to control the media, that the media is a threat to the, well, I guess the political establishment. Who would have thought? And again, this guy got punched in the head for a living. Now, people said he was a man of the people. It's nonsense. Anytime anyone gets into politics, it's usually for very, very selfish means, and this is statism, as I mentioned. But also on top of that, let's look at why they would restrict journalism. Now, they can say fake news left and right, and in a lot of cases they are right, but it's free expression and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And the fact is, it comes down to especially independent journalists who don't have the huge power brokers behind them to push their agendas forward and keep them propped up and funded. It's about the independent medias in the end, because the independent medias expose the information that leads to the individuals in the streets taking that information and taking action with that information. And, you know, that's where movements start. So you take away the independent media, you take away the ability for people to understand the news and stand up to the powers that be that are basically trying to trample every individual liberty they have. So silencing media is disgusting. This guy's a statist. I say all of his fans should just stop even paying attention to him. He's an idiot, and that's basically it. I don't know what else to say to this. This has been a quick little tidbit of information on this story coming out of the Philippines that is not being talked about by the mainstream media. We'll see you next time. All right, so there goes another one. Again, I'm just winging it. Some guy named Andy Dion says, "Hi Josh, are you actually not a shill?" Amazingly, I am not, and weirdly enough, most of the people I know in independent media, well, actually all of them that I know of, really, are not shills. Strange, right? Okay, so again, for those that are just tuning in, I'm just going over small tidbits of, you know, headline news and going over that, and then I'm going to be posting them separately. That's why I'm opening up and closing off each little headline. So let's see what is next. Again, I'm going to be introducing myself. Again, very awkward. All right. Get the web page open that I need here. I keep almost missing the cue here and not getting to the web page in time to actually read what I'm talking about, so kind of puts me off a bit. Okay. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here again for another quick tidbit news update. So this is a big one that we've been talking about a lot at WAM lately, which is the stock market is crashing. Now, the Dow just went down about 400 points, I think a few days ago on the 30th of January. And as this headline says, Greenspan warns, we have a stock market bubble. And going on in this article here, he says, productivity has been dead in the water for the past 10 years. And basically that's inevitable, but he goes on to say that it's going to be happening, it's unstable in the long-term outlook of things. Now, I would differ with that greatly, because Well, first of all, Alan Greenspan's a very smart guy, but he's evil, and he knows what's going on. And of course, he was chair of the Fed. As with any chair of the Fed, very evil person, likes to manipulate markets, or the monetary system, likes to, destroy the markets, likes to enslave people in debt. That's a whole point. But going forward in this, this article also goes into the problems we are facing right now, which is half of Apple's 2017 gains are from ETF flows. Apple's magic goose may no longer be laying a super cycle egg, says Deutsche Bank. Even Deutsche Bank is worrying about these kinds of issues. The stock market is overheating at an insane level. As John Sneisen of World Alternative Media has gone into several times, like, look at this margin debt chart. We are seeing the same things repeat over and over again. It's way too overheated. It has absolutely nothing, and I repeat, nothing to do with Trump. Yeah, Trump can say things that will temporarily help the markets, blah, blah, blah. But this is due to banker manipulation. This is due to crazy out-of-control derivatives. This is due to the repeat of what we've seen time and time again, where there's absolutely no reason for the stock market to be growing, but it is. People like Larry Fink from BlackRock are saying, get into the stock market, buy now, buy high, because they're desperate. They want people to flood to Wall Street. We've seen this in 1857, 1907, 1914, 1917, 1929, speeding up all the way to 1987, and of course 2001 and 2008, and banks are still insolvent. Nothing has changed. They are still insolvent. People have to stop believing that we are just, going to fix the problem with more manipulation. No, you're going to put off the problem, but make it worse when it all comes toppling down. Like I said, 400 points were lost on January the 30th from the Dow. It was just over 500 points in 1987. Now, of course, percentage-wise, it's not even close. I think it was just over 1% down. But when you have overheated to the extent that we have currently seen, there is a huge problem looming, and people so euphoric with no understanding of the market are just flooding there and buying high, and then they're going to panic and sell low and lose so much. So it's so important that people get out of these manipulated markets, start understanding what causes these markets to be so volatile and so, just constantly going up. It's going to crash down. It's like I often say at WAM, you climb up that ladder all the way to heaven. You think you're climbing a ladder to heaven, and then you get to the top and there's a diving board and you're straight to hell. That's basically what it comes down to. So thanks for joining us for another tidbit fact headline, and we will be back with more. All right. There goes another one. Let me know what do you think of this idea. I'm kind of just messing around here. Before I go on to my next headline, I have a super chat from another awesome person. Let's see. Louis Cypher sent $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Louis. I really appreciate that. We can't do it without people like you. YouTube has been absolutely terrible lately. By the way, our video output is low for some reason. I don't know why that's happening. Hopefully it's not lagging too much. But anyway. Louis Cypher says, donation for both you and John. Question, people have been talking about the USD crash since we went off the grid, or the gold standard, in the 70s. What makes us think the time is near and not in another 10 years? So basically the fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the monetary system. So you can't exactly put a date on it. The fact of the matter is, it's been so overly manipulated, it should have crashed a long time ago, especially, looking at 2008, the fact that it surpassed 2008. In 2012, we saw a lot of manipulation, but the difference is that in the past, the interest rates were lowered at an average of about 5.5%, and that kind of put off the crash. And this time around, we have them trying to pull interest rates up just enough to stop them from crashing down, and it's not going to happen because they can't pull them up enough, and we've already seen the damage caused by them trying to pull the interest rates up. And what that's going to eventually lead to is them going into negative interest rate territory, which will be desperately pushing them towards a centrally planned cashless system, which is very, very dangerous. So I would say that it all comes down to central planning, fiat currency. All fiat currency eventually reverts to its intrinsic value of zero. It always has, it always will, and this time won't be any different. And, people have to stop having faith in central banks and start having faith in individual demand that's not enforced by legal tender laws. Let's see, I'm just looking into your question a bit more. Even the gold standard caused a lot of debt devaluation because they put out more IOUs than they had gold in their vaults. So This is just another example of central planning. We need to free the monetary system, free the markets, and allow individuals to decide with their dollar what's going on. Let me just look at some of these comments. There's a few trolls in the chat board, a lot of good people. I gotta find the people that are worth acknowledging in here, because there's a few people that are complaining. You know, I'm gonna go into my I think I have one final news story before we get to more questions. I appreciate the super chats. They mean a lot, because, like, again, I'm making about the same amount of money on YouTube that I was making when we had about 5% of the viewership. They have demonetized us insanely. So hopefully my video output isn't too low. It's telling me on YouTube that there is a huge problem with the video output. Let me know if it's lagging too much, if you can even hear what I'm saying. I don't know why it's low. I have like crazy fast internet, so that's very annoying. Very, very annoying. So let me see here. What is our next story? Again, for those just joining us, I'm going to be introducing myself at the beginning of each story and then signing out at the end of each story. I'm not going away, though. I'm coming right back, and I'm going to answer some questions. So get my next article open here on the computer. Let me see here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to open it up now. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and as many of you know, last night was the State of the Union address, and basically, in my opinion, the State of the Union is that the slaves are getting restless, but they're fighting themselves instead of the true enemy, and that is basically the epitome of the State of the Union right now, just more statism. Now, let's look at this story here, where, of course, we heard from this drooling Kennedy, Joe Kennedy III, last night, after the State of the Union, and going on and on and on with his socialist nonsense. It was very, very annoying to listen to. He needs to learn how to wipe his mouth before talking, and on top of it, he looked like he was speaking from a 12-year-old's bedroom with the whole Bengals poster and sports car in the background. Just looked very strange. Anyway, let's go into what kind of person this guy really is. So everyone thinks Kennedy, and they think, oh, hero, you know, JFK and RFK. Of course, he's a Joe Kennedy III is a great-grandson of Joseph P. Kennedy, the patriarch of the Kennedy family. And let's go into this story that Joe Kennedy III has a pot problem, and there's no doubt about it. This guy is an absolute statist, and looking into the facts here that I actually just pulled up from Luke Rudowski of We Are Change's Facebook page here. Joe Kennedy III, picked for Democrat response to State of the Union, voted to allow the DEA to arrest and prosecute medical cannabis patients, voted 3 times against improving veteran access to medical cannabis, and even voted against kids using non-psychoactive cannabis products to treat their seizures. Wow, what a great guy. So basically he says that you can't make your own decisions. He's going to take control of your life, and this is the guy that they are putting forward for the next president of the United States. And notice how he does that whole thumb in fist thing. You know, like every fake politician does that doesn't actually care or believe what they are saying. Thumb and fist, thumb and fist, thumb and fist. This is what I was told to say. Very tight-knit and, you know, mouth zipped. You know, you're not going to find out my true intentions. We're just going to BS everyone with these stupid, stupid statist speeches where I belittle the audience. Basically, the usual democracy idea of, you know, the majority, you know, ruling over or coercing the minority. Good ideas don't require force. The notion of, you know, prohibition has been proven wrong so many times. I don't know how many more times we could possibly humanly get into this topic. It's 2018. Come on. It's so ridiculous. So Joe Kennedy is basically just your old school statist that wants to, you know, tax you to death, wants to monopolize by the hand of government major corporations, and at the same time tell you that you should go to jail for a very long time if you use cannabis, and, you know, your parents should, you should be taken away from your parents if you're a kid who has cancer or some kind of epilepsy or something that uses medical cannabis even without THC in it. You should be taken away from your parents and put in a foster home, because how dare you try and ease your pain. Joe Kennedy has exposed himself time and time again. Let's stop giving these guys any attention. The fact is, statism is statism is statism. Politics is dead, and let's bury it and let's get it over with. Let's stop falling for these same old tricks of the left, of the right, blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth. You know, Bill Clinton, George Bush, Obama, and even Trump with his okay thing. That's what he does instead of the whole thumb and fist, whatever. Either way, presidents aren't really in charge, and they do the bidding of the global establishment, and they are just slave masters that are herding the sheep on the farm. You know, you feel real good eating grass out of the field because, you know, you feel like you got your sustenance, but in the end, you will be led off to the slaughter with a big smile on your face. That's just not how humanity was meant to live. Human nature is intrinsically free from the time you're born. Government can't give you freedom. They can only take it away, and we have to break free and look for a voluntary structure based on individual, liberties where people decide and consent to whatever happens in their own life, and force is not used against free individuals. Joe Kennedy is just another status, like I'm sorry to say, most of the Kennedys, and it's time that we stop trying to, bring on this renaissance of, well, I remember when Kennedy was, president, wow, what a great president, blah, 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 not understanding the true nature of statism at its core. And the guy's running also with the same party that killed half of his family. So, guys, let's stop falling for the same old tricks and start looking to ourselves for the answers, because you will be the change you wish to see. No politician will. And this pot example is just one of many reasons why we shouldn't be bending over for the state to rob us, extort us, kidnap us, and kill us if they so wish, because, well, they're the state, so they know what's going on. They know better, and we don't, and we should just, bow down to them. Let's put an end to that. Anyway, thanks for watching this quick tidbit of news from a live show that I do every week, I guess I could say, on YouTube, and I will be breaking down all these little tidbit news items and giving them to you in a quick update form, and stay tuned for more. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, there. So I did another one. This is weird. I'm not used to this. I'm kind of just winging this whole thing. Hope you don't mind. Okay, so I'm going to take some questions out. I've gone through my headlines. I'm going to put the ones that I feel were decent enough to repost after the video, but let's see. Michael Ruiz says the Kennedy family has had a fall from grace ever since the 60s. Absolutely. Well, the fact is that Kennedys have always have always fallen from grace. Like going back to Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., he was obviously, like I mentioned, the patriarch of the Kennedy family. He was not a nice guy. The whole Kennedy family was involved in molesting women. People always think that JFK tried to end the Fed, and the fact of the matter is he did not try to end the Fed. Executive Order 11110 actually expanded the size and scope of the Federal Reserve. That is a very big misconception. He was likely killed by the government. There's no way that Lee Harvey Oswald did it himself. I think most people have established that, including the U.S. government and people from the Warren Commission, including former President Ford, who said the whole thing was censored and pieces of evidence were omitted by the CIA. And, of course, Kennedy did say something that I do agree with, that we need to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. That's a good way to get killed. Why he got killed, I don't know. But we know that he was also a statist who... they don't give him enough credit for getting involved in the war in Vietnam. Everyone says he tried to stop the war in Vietnam from happening, but he also armed people in Vietnam and caused a lot of rebellion and caused more disorder and caused more issues in Vietnam. And of course, that story goes back to FDR. And before that, the French, it's always governments creating these problems. And then it's like, maybe the government will solve these problems. It's hilarious. It just never ends. Let's see. Looking into a few more questions. So someone mentioned something about Ben Swan here. Oh yeah. Harrison Whitaker says, have you heard Ben Swan has returned? Yes, I'll be talking with him in about a week and a half. I'll be interviewing Ben Swan. Hopefully all goes well in Acapulco, Mexico. I don't know what exactly is going on. I have to rewrite my whole interview because of recent occurrences. Of course, I'm going to ask him about where he's been and everything, but I don't exactly know what's going on. I'm looking forward to finally being able to hang out with him in person and talking with him. So hopefully I'll bring that to you in the next couple weeks. Looking forward to it. That's all I can really say, though. I know he's getting involved with Dash, the cryptocurrency. That's exciting and good for him. Let's see what else we have here. I'm going to check STEEMIT real quick to see if anyone has commented on STEEMIT. Let's see. Someone making a joke about the band WAM. Let's see. Have an awesome show, Josh. Blah, blah, blah. It's okay. Awesome. Well, there's no questions on STEEMIT, so let's keep looking at the live chat here. Government is cancer, says top videos. Well, yeah, that's kind of their point. The whole purpose of government is to steal, kidnap, murder, hold a gun to your head and tell you what to do because, you know, the greater good of the greater number, says collectivism, because it's fair to steal from people, but it's unfair to make your own choices. Makes sense. Well, that's how much people have been brainwashed. Kyle Cordis, sorry if I said your name wrong, says, hey Josh, what city do you live in? I'm from Windsor, Ontario here. I'm from Winnipeg, Canada, unfortunately, and I'm very cold. Haven't been outside in a while because I prefer, you know, livable temperatures. Let's see. Okay, anonymous user says, corporatism, statism, cannabism, these are all isms. I don't fall for any of it. I don't know what you mean by cannabism. I'm talking about cannabis, the plant. Of course, corporatism and statism go hand in hand. Corporatism is basically corporate fascism. It's government control of the markets, market manipulation, create prosperity for major corporations by the hand of government under the guise of so-called stopping big corporations from having monopolies. It's absurd. And interestingly enough, a lot of socialists these days push the fascist policies that they say they're against fascism, but then misdiagnose fascism as free markets, which is absurd. Just totally denies or defies the entire definition of fascism. But yeah, of course, cannabis is a plant, not an ism. I've never heard of cannabism. But yeah, legalization, however, is nonsense. In Canada, basically, it's a government taking away a right and giving it back to you at a price, and that price is that they will basically monopolize it, and they're going to extort you, and they'll throw you in prison for absolutely nothing. Like, for example, the 14-year sentences for giving cannabis to a minor, which means, like, if you're 18 and you sell to a 17-year-old who willingly consents, you can go to jail for 14 years. See, with carrying around plants over a certain amount, it's more statism, and it's just going to be more monopolized by the big pharmaceutical companies, and the value will inflate, the price will inflate. That's always the way it has been. It's always the way it will be as long as government's involved, which is why the prohibition needs to be ended, not some new kind of prohibition they call legalization. Let's see. I'm just looking through a few of these comments still. Send me your questions on whatever topic. I'll try to get to them. I'm just scrolling up a bit to see if anyone said anything earlier on in the stream. We got a few people from Norway tuning in. That's good to see. It's good to see people in Norway listening to non-statist stuff. I feel the same about Canadians too. It's not a jab at Norway. It's more of a jab at the vast brainwashing by mainstream media in very statist countries. Norway is beautiful, but unfortunately, people have fallen for the tricks of major, massive government corporatism. Let's see. Dil Mendonca says, I am Brazilian, libertarian, and moving to Montreal this year. As an immigrant, how could I support libertarian movement there? I've given up my country. Socialism here is terrible. Yeah, you know, it's weird in Brazil because there is like an anarcho-capitalist movement, but it's not growing at the size and scope that I thought it would. But yeah, Brazil has a lot of problems. Canada has a lot of problems. Basically, anywhere you go in the world has a lot of problems. I tend to like the idea of staying in the country I'm in to stop the problems in the country, but I understand where you're coming from because I'm seriously thinking of moving myself from Canada because I can't even deal with going outside. And sometimes when I'm walking around, people throw stuff at me because they recognize me. And Canada is such a statist country that they're just, ugh. It's not fun. It's just so over the top. SJW. It drives me nuts. But supporting a libertarian movement there is somewhat of a libertarian movement in Montreal. I don't know Montreal very well. I've never actually been to the city. But check with the Libertarian Party. Tim Moen is a friend of mine, head of the Libertarian Party of Canada, a really good guy. He might be able to give you some tips. Might want to comment to him or message him or something like that. I'm sure there's a Libertarian Party in Montreal. The Libertarian Party in Canada is a lot less, I'm going to get into government, but, you know, regulate this and regulate this. It's more like we want to end government, which is a bit nicer than in the U.S. for obvious reasons. But, I mean, with that said, I mean, I don't really believe personally, I don't subscribe to the idea that you'll get into government and change things. But I think that people that try to get in to spread a good message and don't just vote no on, or they just vote no on everything, that's a good thing. Whatever. I'm not going to hold that against them. So someone asked, Christian M says, is Mexico safe for travel? It depends where you go. If you go to certain parts of Mexico City, I'd say not so much, but Mexico is not the war zone that the media tries to tell you about. First of all, there's billionaires buying up property in Mexico for super cheap and then trying to get tourists to stay away. The crime in places like Acapulco are mostly due to the cartels. So if you're not messing with a cartel or not in a cartel, the notion of them attacking you, the city in Acapulco, for example, is so heavily involved with cartel that if you go there, I mean, they basically protect you. They don't want to kill tourists. That's where their money comes from. But I find it a lot more free and a lot more safe than, for example, Winnipeg, Canada, the murder capital of Canada, or definitely far safer than Chicago. On the way back from Mexico last year, I stopped in Chicago, and that was terrifying. At nighttime too, it was not fun. Mexico, I walk around in a suit and tie in the slums, and people are super nice to me, and no one messes with me. I just don't understand. Everyone's freaking out about it. The government's saying don't travel to Acapulco. It's stupid. The idea is that no one really follows the law in Mexico, so it must be in chaos. Meanwhile, the reality is it's more that the government is chaotically trying to get people to follow laws, and the people just aren't doing it because Mexicans are intrinsically very independent people. Most of them anyway. So I don't know. I don't think Mexico is unsafe per se. If you get yourself into trouble, like anywhere in the world, it's like there's a few people who were found dead in Acapulco. Okay, well, a few years back, or about 10 years back, a guy named Tim McLean had his head cut off on a bus in just outside of Winnipeg, Canada. Stay out of Canada. They're cutting off heads there. See what I mean? Or like in Compton, LA, there are some shootings in the 90s. Stay out of the entire United States because it's unsafe. It depends on where you go. So I just keep an eye on that, but don't fall for all that stuff about Acapulco being dangerous. It's so much safer than most places I've been. I was in Vegas right before the shooting. That sketched me out. Anyway, so people want me to talk about silver really badly. So even Scott Medeiros even wrote it backwards and wrote it in one letter at a time down the chat. Okay, I will go into silver. Silver is incredibly undervalued, in my opinion. It's been manipulated for years. We just saw 6 traders from Deutsche Bank, HSBC, and UBS were recently arrested for spoofing the markets. It's been manipulated most of all since 2012. It's been in an artificial bear market, but it's breaking those market trends, and it looks like we're going to see rallies in the near future. I did an interview alongside John Sneisen with David Morgan, and I think he's from the Morgan Report, and we talked about silver going into 2018, and it looks to me like it's just a ticking time bomb for, you know, the bond markets, the stock market, all that. And what are people flooding to? What are people going to flood out of fiat to? Gold, silver, and certain cryptocurrencies. I think gold and silver are great insurance of wealth. I think that we will see a hike this year, a jump or a rally this year, but it's so manipulated. Everything's so manipulated. Deutsche Bank was caught red-handed manipulating the gold and silver markets in 2016 into 2017 as well, alongside HSBC and BNP Paribas and Bank of America. You can just go on and on and on. So as long as the manipulators are around, the markets will be manipulated, but it's like holding a beach ball underwater. Eventually that is going to gain pressure and it's going to bounce out of the water, and that's where we will see a massive exodus from the derivatives markets, etc., and a huge influx into the silver and gold markets. So that's my thoughts on that. Of course, a lot of people have been asking me why I haven't been doing as many videos on cryptocurrencies lately. It's because I've been saving a lot of the news stories for a weekly show I now do every Saturday on We Are Change with Luke Rudowski. So make sure to tune into that every Saturday. I go over all the biggest news of the week in cryptocurrency news, and we'll hopefully keep doing that, continuing on down the road. It's very enjoyable to do. I love it. It's a great opportunity too, because We Are Change has like 510 plus thousand subscribers, and I get to bring this information to their audience. And my whole point in doing this is educating people, not just within the knowledge, but outside of that echo chamber. We Are Change has a ton of very intelligent people watching from different subjects. Bringing in the financial side, money is probably the most important thing when it comes to the enslavement of mankind, how the government centralizes things, manipulates things in order to push people into debt servitude, and being able to educate to people that might not in all cases like study this stuff religiously like some do is good. That's why I do this, right? I love talking to people who agree with me. I also, even more so, love talking to people who disagree with me, because it brings the conversation to their doorstep, and that's important. Hypnotic HP says, Josh, any word on Dean Clifford? I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to him for a while. I've known him. I went to meetings with him. Good guy, in my opinion. I will be seeing him in Acapulco, Mexico. I don't know how he's getting there. He doesn't have like ID or passports or anything. I don't know how those guys do it. Personally, I like the idea. I just don't understand how they deal with getting stopped by police like all day, every day. So, yeah, anyway. Jaslyn Demont says, Josh, please get to rent in the GTA, in the Greater Toronto Area. I mean, rent a place in there? I would rather take $100,000 and set it on fire than rent in Toronto. That's a bubble waiting to burst. I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but yeah, anyway. John Snyson's in the chat. This must be really boring. I always realize this after. This must be really boring for people that are not watching this live. They're just like seeing me talk to people, but they don't know who I'm talking to. They don't see the comments. So I will make sure to mention names and what the comments are. P. Bebnowski says, Luke is a good guy. Keep it up. Yeah, he's absolutely awesome. Super nice. Let's see. Jaslyn Demont says, it's absolutely insane. Lol, I live in Oshawa. Yeah, well, it's going to probably affect Oshawa too. I mean, outer limits, rural communities won't get hit as much as the big cities, but I mean, it's brutal. The manipulation of the housing market, the bubble, is absolutely insane, and we're seeing some kind of pullback in Toronto, and it could be the sign that a lot of us have been warning about for a long time of the big crash. Inevitably has to happen eventually. As I said, all fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the markets and the monetary system, but eventually it will happen. So we have to be prepared. It's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. People are... Michael Holiday says Thor, and Monk2 says Stub. John Thor Stubb Snyson. Longest name ever. So he's the only non-serial killer I know with like several names. I think that's actually, it's funny because Gary Franchi interviewed, like from the Next News Network, interviewed John Snyson, I think in 2016, and said the same thing before the interview. You're like, you're the only guy that I know with so many names that's not a serial killer. Let's see. Dave16 says, I know of some foreigners purchasing 2 homes for rent. In Toronto? Ugh, that's bad. I don't understand how people see like a market that was going straight up, and they're like, I know, I'm gonna buy in high. It's people that watch HGTV all day. They watch like these home and garden television channels and watch people fix up houses and everything. And they're like, I can do that. I know nothing about the market, but I'm going to get into the market and start just, buying up property and selling it for more expensive under the assumption that it's going to get more expensive. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. We got to start talking to more people about getting out of that market. Like, stop going into markets you know nothing about. Stop getting into the housing market when it's bubbling up like this. Why are you buying high? It drives me crazy, makes me want to pull my hair out. I've been talking about it for years. John Snyson's been talking about it for years. It's a disease of ignorance brought on upon by, mainstream television. Like, everything's great. Nothing to see here. Like, give us your money to keep propping up this dead horse. Anyway. Let me look through a few more of these. There's so many comments coming in. It's hard to keep up with all of them. Let's see. I don't know how that beginning news headline thing went. Kind of all over the place. When I wing stories, it doesn't always go as good. I really like thinking over stories a lot and having like points to make. But yeah, I don't know. Michael Holiday says FOMO, or fear of missing out. Absolutely. That's when people get into markets they know nothing about and they just buy in high. That's all FOMO. FOMO can be good for a market for those of us that, aren't, how do I put this? Ignorant and know nothing about the market. I mean, those of us that are in the market and think, well, maybe it's time to sell, the FOMO keeps it propped up for a bit longer, but it's not healthy. It's all going to come crashing down, and people have to understand this, and it's really sad to see so many people lose everything like we've seen in Detroit, and we're going to see it again. We're going to see it over and over again. We've seen Sydney, Australia is looking very bubblish. London, England, Seattle, Washington, San Francisco. We've gone into so many other ones. I think in Connecticut to some extent. I don't know. It's happening in a lot of places. So let me just see here. Michael Ruiz says, how do you tell the difference between good cryptos and scams like BitConnect? Well, first of all, when they're asking you for Bitcoin in exchange for their tokens and just residual income and all that kind of stuff, stay away from it. Look at the fundamentals. Look at what is the purpose of this vehicle. What is the purpose of this product? What does it provide? What is it going to innovate? Too many people put a bunch of money into something like Litecoin with like over $1 billion market cap that's based on dental hygiene and the dental industry. Yeah, that's like kind of reminiscent of pets.com. Anyone remember that? Pets.com, skyrocket. They had a little puppet dog thing or whatever that did commercials on TV and real funny, blah, blah, blah. He was in the Macy's parade and everything, and everyone was like, it's a great company, Pets.com. Didn't really offer any innovation, though. And when the dot-com bubble burst, it burst. We're going to see consolidation after we see a massive altcoin crash. A lot of cryptocurrencies are going to die and never recover. The good ones will survive and prevail more than ever. Notice how after the dot-com bubble, the internet still exists. We're on it right now. Google survived. Amazon survived. Not before they took a big hit first, but they survived, and they're doing way better than they were back then. Though they're kind of dying off right now because they're censoring so many people. And they got a lot of government help. But decentralization is the future. And one way or another, blockchain will win, whether it's for good or for evil. And that comes down to us as individuals understanding the market. And centrally planned cashless systems are evil. Decentralized cryptographic currencies based on free market demand and actually have scarcity demand application not forced by legal tender laws, any of that. It's great. Michael Holiday says, Michael, stick to Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Neo, EOS, OMG. I agree with all those. I don't know a lot about Neo. So I'm not going to confirm Neo, but EOS, OMG, I love them. Litecoin, super undervalued in my opinion. Bitcoin is great. Ethereum, I've had some issues with them. I feel like there's some form of centralization coming from the Ethereum Foundation, but it's definitely one of the ones that are going to survive, I think. So I think that there's a lot of problems with a lot of cryptocurrencies. We just have to look at the white papers. We have to understand, what does it provide? Steem, in my opinion, is one of the best long-term cryptos because so much is powered on it. It's one of the most used traded cryptocurrencies in the world, by the way. And it has STEEMIT, it has DTube, it has DLive, it has DSound, it has all these apps, it has eSteam, it has so many things built on it. They have the smart media tokens, so much application use, so much fundamental use. EOS has no fees other than, exchange fees, but that isn't EOS itself. It's super, super decentralized. It's transparent but anonymous. It's a great cryptocurrency too. Dan Larimer is awesome. Check out our interview, the interview I did with him back in December. Very interesting guy. Anyway, my voice is starting to go, so I appreciate everyone tuning in. Anonymous user actually said $750 billion derivative market bubble. What is your view? Actually, it's technically about 1.2 quadrillion by most by most math. It's insane. Unless you're speaking of dark money, that amount of money doesn't exist in the entire world. So when the derivatives markets goes down, we're talking about one of the biggest epic crashes in the history of the world. Exactly why I do what I do, especially, alongside John Snyson here at WAM, try and get people the information they need in order to make their own choices based on their own due diligence, of course, and protect themselves, protect their family, and protect their wealth. Very important. Don't allow yourself to be shoved into debt servitude. It always comes down to they shove you down that bottomless pit of debt in order to force you to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, which puts you in perfect servitude. Debt slavery, populace in fear, and a populace in debt is a populace in servitude, and that's exactly where they want you, and centralization is key there. We have to decentralize our lives. We need to ensure our wealth. We need to stop investing long-term in the stock market, like Robert Kiyosaki has warned about for years. We have to stop believing in other people's word and start understanding these things ourselves, because there's nothing more important to understand than money, because if you understand money, you can do far better escaping the centralized control and coercion of the individual at the hands of the state and the banking system. Free yourselves, free your minds, look towards self-sustainability, financial responsibility. You can't have freedom without responsibility. It's intrinsic within us, and it is a hallmark of freedom itself. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. There's so much to go into. As always, my voice only lasts so long. Everyone in my apartment right now, my roommate, my girlfriend, all sick. It's driving me insane. I'm trying not to get sick right before Acapulco. So I don't want to mess up my throat and give myself the wrong idea tomorrow when I wake up with a sore throat. Then, oh no, I caught it. So until next time, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Let me know what you think about doing these live headline videos and then releasing little tidbit pieces, 2-minute pieces, quick updates from the live streams as independent videos. I feel like it'll help me reach more people and get more news out. I don't have to do a ton of editing. So anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and make sure to press like. If you haven't subscribed, press subscribe. Lots more coming to you here from WAM. We got huge interviews coming up, and I might just be doing an interview with Ron Paul in person in Acapulco, Ben Swan, so many interesting people, and Jeff Burrick's about to announce a new update on Anarchapulco, which might just be awesome. I think it will be. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, everyone, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.